Have you ever felt like you have wings, but you are terrified to fly? You know you have the talent. You know you are capable. But while others, people with half your skill, are soaring high and grabbing opportunities, you are still standing on the ground, double-checking your parachute. We tell ourselves we are waiting for the right moment, but deep down, we know the truth. We are waiting for the fear to leave. We are waiting for self-confidence to magically appear before we take the first step. But what if I told you that waiting for the fear to leave is the exact reason you are stuck? If you have ever felt that you were good enough but just not brave enough, listen closely. Once upon a time, in a mist-covered village by a great river, lived a man named Elias. Elias was 40 years old, with strong hands and eyes that were always scanning the water. He was a boatman, and he was a genius with wood and water. Elias could read the river like a book. He knew where the currents were deep and where the rocks were hiding. He could steer a boat through a narrow gap with his eyes closed. His technique was flawless. But Elias had a secret that kept his pockets empty and his heart heavy. He had no courage. While other boatmen crossed the Black Channel to trade with the rich city on the other side, Elias stayed in the shallow waters. He only ferried sacks of rice across the calm, safe creek. He spent his life near the shore, looking at the distant city lights, wishing he was there, but paralyzed by the thought of the waves. Elias watched with bitterness as younger, clumsy boatmen took the risk. They didn't know the river like he did. They rowed badly. They fought the water instead of dancing with it. Yet they would return from the city with bags of silver, new clothes, and loud stories of adventure. Elias would sit on his perfect, polished boat and think, "I am better than them. If I went, I would be faster." But then the cold voice in his head would whisper, "What if the boat tips? What if the storm comes? You are safe here. Don't risk it." Elias was the best boatman who never left the harbor. He was working hard, polishing his skills, but he was digging for gold in a pile of sand. He was waiting to feel ready. One evening, the sky turned purple and the river swelled. A desperate merchant ran to the docks. He had a box of rare medicine that needed to reach the city hospital before dawn. "I will pay 50 silver coins to the man who takes me across now," the merchant shouted. 50 silver coins. That was 2 years' wages. The young, reckless boatman looked at the angry waves and stepped back. It was too rough for them. The merchant turned to Elias. "You," he said, "they say you are the master. Take me." Elias looked at the money. He looked at his sturdy boat. He knew the path. He knew he could do it. But then he looked at the dark, crashing water. His throat closed up. His hands started to shake. The fear felt like a physical weight on his chest. "You will drown," the fear said. Elias lowered his head. I cannot. It is too dangerous." The merchant cursed. Moments later, a ragged old fisherman with a leaky boat stepped forward. "I will try," the fisherman said. Elias watched from the shore as the old fisherman fought the waves, disappeared into the mist, and made it. Elias stood in the rain, safe, dry, and completely defeated. The pain of regret was far worse than the fear of the waves. That night, Elias sat by a small fire, staring into the flames. Sitting next to him was Kabir, a blind elder of the village. "The storm has passed, Elias," Kabir said softly, "but your storm is still raging inside." Elias confessed everything. "I have the talent, Kabir. Why am I so weak? Why do the fools succeed while I stay here?" The blind man turned his face to Elias. "You think confidence is a feeling, Elias. You are waiting for the fear to go away before you get in the boat. But fear is not a cloud. It does not just float away." "Then how do I beat it?" Elias asked. "You don't," Kabir said. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is rowing while your hands are shaking. The others succeed not because they are not afraid, but because they do not let the fear hold the oars. You must row with the fear." The next morning, the river was still gray and choppy. Elias walked to his boat. He didn't have a passenger. He didn't have a reward. He just had a choice. He looked at the rope tying his boat to the safe wooden dock. His stomach turned. His heart hammered against his ribs. The voice screamed, "Stay!" But Elias remembered the blind man's words. "Row while your hands are shaking." "I am afraid," Elias whispered to himself, "and I am going anyway." He untied the rope. He pushed off. The first wave hit the boat hard. Panic seized him. He almost turned back. But he dipped the oars. 1 stroke, 2 strokes. He focused on his hands. He used his skill. He cut through the water. He didn't look at the destination. He just looked at the next wave. He reached the middle of the deep channel. The water was black and deep. He stopped rowing for a moment. The boat bobbed up and down. He was alive. He hadn't sunk. A strange sensation washed over him. It wasn't excitement. It was calm. It was the silence of self-respect. He realized that the monster wasn't the river. The monster was his own hesitation, and he had just killed it. From that day on, Elias didn't become fearless. The fear sat in the boat with him every single day, but Elias was the captain. He became the greatest merchant of the river, not because he was safe, but because he finally learned the secret to overcoming fear of failure. So, here is the lesson for you today. You might have the best ideas, the best talent, and the best plans in the world, but in the battle of talent versus courage, talent is useless if it stays on the shore. Elias stopped asking how to build self-confidence in his mind and started building it with his actions. If you feel stuck, realize that unlocking your full potential doesn't require you to be fearless. It requires you to be active. Don't just treat this as another motivational story for success. Treat it as a mirror. Don't wait until you are not scared to start. Start with shaking hands. Start with a trembling voice. Start with a pounding heart. Just untie the rope. Your life is waiting across the river. Start rowing today.